Real Country 1430 AM and 107.3 FM WRDN. I'm Brian Winnekins. Joining us this morning, Wisconsin 3rd District Congressman Ron Kind, as we talk about a big decision with the USMCA. And thank you to our newsmaker sponsors, including Alcivia Co-op, Wisconsin Farmers Union, A&J Agronomy, Osteoplastics, Synergy Co-op, Annabis Silo, Animal Wellness Center in Buffalo Valley, and Compeer Financial. And Congressman Kind, when we recorded this on Tuesday, earlier in the day on Tuesday, the dispute process for the USMCA in regards to the dairy portion and the agriculture portion of the USMCA ruled in favor of the United States against Canada. That's kind of some big news.
Well, it really is. First of all, good morning, Brian. Glad to be with you again, and Happy New Year to you and all your listeners. This will be the year that we're finally going to get the coronavirus behind us. I'm praying and keeping my fingers crossed because this is getting old, and I know people are getting anxious to return to normalcy again. But on USMCA, I felt it was very important that the administration take up the enforcement provisions that was agreed upon, by all three countries, and make sure we move forward on it, making sure that everyone is doing what they said they would do when they signed this trade agreement. And that's exactly what the administration's been doing now, pressing the case with dairy in Canada, some of the commodity issues we have with Mexico, some of the labor issues we have with Mexico. And that's exactly why these enforcement provisions took a little longer to get into the agreement, but it was very important that we did it so that we can enforce these provisions. And I know some criticize me for negotiating hard on making sure we had a strong enforcement chapter as part of the agreement. But it's starting to show that was necessary.
So with this ruling in favor of the U.S., basically it means now Canada will have to open up their dairy markets.
Yeah, to the extent that they had promised to under USMCA. It won't be complete open competition because they do have a supply management that we recognize and that we're sensitive to. But they are going to have to take more, especially of our Class 7 ultra-filtered milk products that they've been trying to exclude throughout recent years and live up to the terms of the agreement. And that, for folks back home, is what you would expect these countries to do. And if they don't, now we have enforcement tools to ensure that they do comply.
So I guess Congressman Kind with this. Okay, so if I'm Canada, I'm like, I don't like this ruling. What can I do about it?
Well, they can try to appeal, but this seems to be my first brush with the ruling, pretty strong on the merits, factually based. So I don't know what new facts or evidence that Canada is going to be able to produce, but they do have a right to be able to dispute initially the ruling and see if there's additional information that they may not have presented to the panel for consideration. I don't think that's the case, but nonetheless, it is good news for our dairy producers. This won't be the panacea that our dairy producers need, given the fluctuation of dairy prices in recent years. But it is important because Canada and Mexico are our two biggest export markets. They're our two border neighbors. We have to find a rules-based trading system with them because a lot of goods and products are going to be crossing these borders. And that was the exact purpose behind modernizing NAFTA and creating the new USMCA trade agreement, making sure that trade continues, which is mutually beneficial to all the countries, but is done based on the rules that was agreed to at the time. And that's where we are today.
So if I'm Canada and I decide to appeal, does that mean I can kind of do the old stall game here? And I don't have to do anything because I'm appealing, or do they have to start opening up?
Yeah, they have a specific timeline. They can't just drag this out indefinitely, unlike the U.S. judicial process, where it seems you can file appeal after endless appeal and carry it on for years. That's not the way this is set up with the USMCA. So there'll have to be some definitive ruling sometime shortly. And Canada will have to abide. Otherwise, there will be economic sanctions that we now can apply against them if they choose not to abide. And that would, I think, do more economic damage to them than what the dairy ruling would pertain.
Talking with Wisconsin 3rd District Congressman Ron Kind this morning about the recent dispute resolution from the USMCA in favor of the U.S. Over Canada for the dairy industry. Congressman Kind, now there's nothing in USMCA that says Canada can go to the WTO now and say, hey, wait a minute, this is unfair, because this is totally separate from that, right?
Yeah, this is a separate trilateral trade agreement that was agreed to by all the parties. And there was a dispute panel that was assembled according to the agreement and a judgment that was rendered. So there's really no outside basis for Canada to seek relief under this circumstance. It is within the four corners of the trade agreement that we struck with them. And that's how we interpret it. And fortunately, that's where the dispute panel came down to. They say, you're right. Canada hasn't been living up to what they promised to do.
Meanwhile, Congressman Kind, are there other agriculture issues that we've seen with Canada and even with Mexico in regards to USMCA that the trade representative Ty may have to say, we got to take this to the dispute resolution as well?
Yeah, I always was very concerned about Canada playing games with the phytosanitary standards, coming up with some bogus scientific reason to exclude our commodity products. We have to keep a close eye on that, make sure that they now are living up again to the terms of what was agreed to under USMCA, that it has to be science-based and it can't just be some subjective reason to exclude our products. One item that wasn't really resolved in USMCA is the soft lumber issue. And I would like to get that resolved because obviously that commodity price is skyrocketing. It's increasing the cost of homes here in the United States. It's a very tight home market to begin with astronomical expense to buy into your first home, for instance. This is another way you can reduce those costs for the typical consumer in America. And then for Mexico, I mean, they have been playing some games with some of the commodity issues that we were concerned about. That could go to dispute resolution with them, as well as some of the labor issues that we've had longstanding with Mexico. So listen, this is why you enter in an agreement. So you have some enforceability, some rules that all the parties have to abide by. And when you get ruled in a certain matter against yourself, it's never comfortable, but that's the process we have set up, and it beats the alternative, which is resolving this stuff on your own through self-help, which means tariff retaliation and trade wars, which only hurt all the countries involved. So this is a peaceful way of resolving any trade dispute that you might have without resorting to trade wars.
Wisconsin 3rd District Congressman Ron Kind this morning.